So, hello everybody, all starseeds and way showers and healers. Okay, you know me, I'm Hak Yo. I'm a blue energy healer, and today I've got a very special and wonderful guest, and she is Zahara Celestial. Hi, Zahara.
Hello, lovely to
Okay,
be here.
so Zahara is a way shower and ascension guide. She's a starseed, intuitive healer, specializing with codes of love and light through image and sound. Zahara was awake even as a child, with memories of past lives and psychic abilities and memories. Part of her soul path was choosing dysfunctional parents so she could clear ancestral karma, and the process of healing was a journey of embracing then and moving on from being an empath and wounded healer. In 2010, Zahara awoke to her galactic origins and multi-dimensional quantum awareness. She was far faster than me. So, Zahara, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. So, I just made a very short and brief introduction. Perhaps you may want to say something extra.
No, I'd love to hear an introduction about you next.
Oh, yes. Well, as I said, I am an energy healer, and I use blue energy from the eastern heavens, and I channel this energy to do healing. I used to do Reiki, but at the moment, I find that blue energy gives me better perspective and even diagnostic abilities and much more information. And right now, I would use blue energy healing about 99% of the time. And I'm also, since Zahara, you asked me, I have to say that I'm also a Feng Shui consultant. And at times, I would use medical Feng Shui, which is my specialty, to solve problems of health in people who may just need a few Feng Shui arrangements in their houses. So that's about me.
Wow, this Blu-ray healing. I've not heard of that before.
Oh, no, you're right. Because to my knowledge, blue energy healing,
Blue energy.
blue energy healing is about, as far as I know, just about 20 to 30 people in the world who have been initiated. You can't undergo a course. You have to be initiated by the blue energy master, and his name is Mr. Wayne Tan. Wayne Tan Wei Ling. That's his full
Oh
name.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, after I got initiated into blue energy, I had a dream, Zahara. And in that dream, an old man from the a sage, in white robes, long hair, white, totally white, appeared in my dreams, and he just said something like, he's going to upgrade me. And then in that dream, he pointed his finger, and there was a blast of pure, brilliant white light. And I woke up from the dream.
Wow, I can feel the energy actually as you speak. Wow.
Wow,
Wow.
fantastic. You are fantastic. You could feel it.
It's really like going "Ooh," all through my, it's like really
Yeah,
activating. Just you saying it's
yeah. And
very
actually, wow. Actually, also, I have, well, I have done healing for several people, But one of the most memorable person that I helped in his healing was a Buddhist monk from Myanmar. He was sick, and he's also my spiritual master. So I went to see him, and I told him I'm going to give him energy healing. He was really, you know, in ill health. So when I started giving it to him, I know that he received much more than anybody else. And then when I finished the session, the Buddhist monk said to me, he had never seen such bright light in his entire monkhood. So he's about the only guy who could see what I was doing. The rest would probably feel, most of them feel the energy. Some of them just see, you know, balls of light. But 80% of them see or feel nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, when when I started seeing giving healing myself, and it was at that time, it was quite a few years ago, and it'll be in person. Now I do all my healing online via Zoom. That when I was seeing people, it was not so well. There was less people that were aware of certainly not aware of star seeds or galactic or quantum dimensions and energies. But I worked with quite a few people who they could feel, and sometimes they actually were blocked on a human level, weren't able to sense and feel. And so that's been a major theme, I think, for human beings, being blocked and desensitized, and still I do work with a lot of people, with them bringing them back into their body and opening their senses. And what I think the old way of being, old paradigm, patriarchy, whatever we want to call it, calls extrasensory or psychic. I feel, and it feels, I know that this is our natural way of sensing and being, but it's been, because we've been kind of squashed and limited, it's now seen as outside of the normal. But I feel this is the normal to be sensitive.
Well, Zahara, sorry, I have a question right now, because in blue energy healing, the subject can be, okay, anywhere. We do distance healing as well. But I find that the location of that person is very important to really zoom in onto the person. Because one of my experience was hilarious. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
I got this young guy from Singapore last year. He was admitted in the Singapore hospital, and he was there for about 3 to 4 weeks of undiagnosed fever, until one of his friends contacted me. So he agreed for the healing, and so I gave him a few sessions. And at that time, he was admitted in the intensive care under investigations. The doctors really have no idea what was it, bacterial, viral, and in fact, all the tests came back negative. So anyway, I said to him, you gotta give me your room number, your bed number, and which floor are you in the hospital. So he gave it to me, and I gave him the healing. And then the next day, I gave him a second course. The third day, when I gave him the healing, Zahara, I got a shock, because I know the energy didn't go to him. So I said to myself, what's happening? Either he is dead, or I have no idea why it's not reaching him. So I messaged him, and he said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. They took me out of intensive care, and now I'm in the general ward." I said, "You man, you got to tell me your location exactly."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So with that experience, I henceforth always ask for their exact location, you know, just like a GPS kind of thing.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense. Yeah. Wow.
Otherwise, I know when it doesn't reach the target, the energy would bounce off and give it to whoever requires.
Yes. Yeah. And did he get better?
You know what? I had to tell him to tell his doctor what tests to do. And in one of my investigations psychically, I discovered that he's got bird flu. So I asked him, "And do you know you have a bird flu? Did the doctors tell you?" And he says, "No." Then I said, "I wonder how you got a bird flu." Then he told me he's got a few parrots in his house. Oh, I said, there you go.
Wow.
But anyway, he got better, and then from the general ward, and he was discharged. And
Oh, good.
yep,
Wonderful.
thank you.
And did they diagnose it was bird flu?
Actually, after he was discharged, he didn't follow up with me. As usual, Zahara, they would forget about you.
Yeah, you've done your bit.
Yep, that's right. So I didn't get any
Mm.
more feedbacks, and it's okay because some of them really keep on ringing you up, keep on asking you questions, and that's take a bit of energy
Yeah,
and
yes.
time.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wow.
So, what have you been up to lately?
um, yes, it's very intensive at the moment. It feels like every day is like a not even a week or month or a year in, and then I feel that's no longer relevant because we're in a different I can't I was going to say in a different time, but I feel we're moving out of our understanding or experience of what is time. So, but our phrase, the way that we speak, refers to how we have perceived how we are in
Yep.
a linear time frame. So it's that's one thing that I've been aware of is like I'm finding it hard to articulate what my experience is because the way we would or I would talk about things has the old way. So I'm having to kind of take time with myself, with my thoughts, how I communicate, which I think is really brilliant in the biggest meaning of that word. We're not running away with our thoughts or words. We're sort of having to take time on and consider and I'm just spending my time. Well, that's another phrase, spending time. See, but why is time? That's what I mean. I can't even have a thought without going off on what do I want to speak about with. That is very, capitalistic and patriarchal. And it's like, and it's programming because the minute we say like a phrase, I am spending time, or there's that other awful phrase, killing time. I'm like,
Oh
oh my
no,
God.
no.
No, I never say that, but
Yeah.
I obviously have. So I'm thinking, we talk about the patriarchal, the old system, the way that's being questioned at the moment because of where the world is. It's people who haven't questioned, and those of us who have been, who are questioning. We're all questioning in a deeper way, and that system has been very attached to how we spend our time. It's like you clock in and then you clock out, and then you have your time and all this, and it's like, but we're all alive. that rather than fitting into a system and being controlled by that. So for me, the last, I don't know, it's been happening for a while, since 2020, being really aware of time, how that is a construct. You know, we have a clock and a watch and all that, but I've been aware of my body wanting to wake up as the sun is rising, and then my human aspect, or my other aspect who's got appointments and, you know, with people I work with or whatever, is saying that's inconvenient because I need a certain amount of hours of sleep. And so but it's all wonderful, and I've been very aware of witnessing the different waves of people who wake up or have been waking up. So there was a wave of people in 2010 and 2012, which I am in that bit. And then there was another wave in 2016. And then there's a lot of people last year, and then this year now. And I was reflecting on it this morning, how those people who are waking up to their star seed or multi-dimensional galactic aspects, they're soul retrieving. It's a sort of a shamanic term, and they're expanding from their heart awareness. They're experiencing in the most intense time, because and very quick, one thing after another after another after another. And so that's their soul has chosen that. So there is no comparison. We're all chose the different paths. Like we're if there is an ascension mountain, we all need to climb that mountain in our own unique way, the different paths, because we want to experience it in our own way. And we're all needed, you know, to be holding certain perspectives, experiences for ourselves and everybody else. So I'm finding that very fascinating, actually. So I was sort of working with people who that are waking up really quickly, and they're very different to people who have been woken up previously, because I can sense their like higher dimensional selves, their galactic aspects is really present, that is really fully activated in a way, and their human is just on the cusp of being aware of that. So it's a very different feel. So I've had people I'm like, goodness, that it's very close, if that makes any sense. And then compared to other people I might have worked with, I don't know, a few years ago, the humans been a bit more resistant. The blocks have been more solid. And so I've worked with them with sort of working through releasing the shoulds and the programming of and the blocks to feel and sense and be with their soul and heart or guides or whatever it is. And so I've been sort of witnessing the collective. It's a collective evolution. So because I can see there's different people come my way and then they have a certain resonance, and then there'll be another wave of people coming my way holding a different resonance.
Oh yeah. The people that you have met, and what are the most common, what they call the ascension symptoms these days?
First off, I don't call them as symptoms because of the programming with that word. Okay. I know what you mean, and I honor that. But just to throw that out there, I call them experiences. Because because I think we're so can be with the programming of dis-ease and there's something wrong, and so then it can be a bit of a battle with the, I call it the ego human aspect. But the common symptoms or experiences, they're quite vast, and part of that journey is enabling, supporting ourselves to discern what they are, what is going on, so we can communicate with our body. Because one symptom, for instance, is like a rash. Could be so many things. So people could like, well, is it Kundalini rising, or is it the crystalline light body, or have I got an allergy, or are allergies anyway part of the ascension awakening? And it can get a bit confusing. So for me, part of my own work with myself and then with others is listening. It's opening up the senses so we can communicate with our bodies, because it's our bodies that are ascending, that are moving through into a different vibration. It's a physical experience, as well as having visions and dreams. And the latter part, in my experience and with others, it's the body then coming online and upgrading and releasing. So the main two things I think are, which happen not in a linear way, it can happen simultaneously, is the releasing of the density, the programming, the emotions, the trauma, whether it's in this lifetime, past lifetimes, ancestral timelines, alternative lifetimes. I mean, it's all happening now. So that's why it's very intense. So we can have releasing, and then we have the when we release, this is very basic. So then when we release all that density, the stuff that's been pressed down, we create space for the lighter energies to come in, or the lighter energies to then shine out within, and the DNA to be activated, so it's like upgrades and activations, and they happen because it's circular. It's not linear. In my experience, nothing is linear. So so anyway, that's
I think one of the most common things that I've heard from many people is that, including myself, is of extreme fatigue upon waking up in the morning. So there are a few so-called theories. One is a medical problem. Two is the energies are coming in so much and the body is changing. And the third one, all these starseeds, they probably do a lot of work in the astral or in other dimensions when they are sleeping, and so they get hugely fatigued. Is that right to say?
In my experience, yes, because I've since end of February, beginning of March, I have been fatigued. I wake up and I got bags on my eyes, rings. I'm like, oh, and I actually did go to my doctor, got every blood test for anything that might be related to fatigue, and I knew it would. My intuition thought it's not going to come back as anything, and it was all like negative. Yes, I'm sensing when I wake up, I think I do know that I've not had a sleep that's very at that state where you just completely rest. So I wake up feeling I've been really active in the night. So I have that knowing. The other night, before I was going to sleep, I lay down, and then my whole body was vibrating, resonating, and I tuned in. It was like gold vibration, and I tuned in. I was like, well, is it too much dark chocolate? And I thought, no, I haven't had too much dark chocolate. That's one thing that that's one of my things I like to have, and because that stimulates my heart. It's too much caffeine, because dark chocolate has caffeine. So I'm very careful now. I don't do that. And it's like, well, my heart's not palpitating and not beating really fast. So I'm feeling relaxed. I'm not emotionally charged. I'm I haven't just run around. I've been doing exercise, so it's not brought all the chi energy moving. So I was like, my human ego mind was sort of ticking off all the things it could be. And then I'm aware of that's what my human ego mind does. And it's like, this felt very different though. And I've heard a couple other people experiencing that. I had one lovely, she's divine. She's become a friend, but she came for sessions. Because when I first met her, it was, I don't know whether it was, I get confused about time now. Sometime last year, I think, she came to classes that I was giving, and I tuned into her, and I'm like, you are birthing a million stars. That's the only way I could and I've never met anyone like her. And then she came in for a session, and what she wanted and needed was to be earthed and grounded, because the energy activation was so like boom within her physical. I said to her, I don't know how you're not knackered. I don't know how you're not so tired. And because she does a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation, and she is this light body. So yes, she is very unique. She's in India at the moment. So I thought that, and because I could feel, back to me, because I could feel all the cells moving and being activated and all this energy, and I could feel it on a physical level, and then I could also go within and then sort of and sense the intention of that. It's very beautiful. I'm like, that's like, it felt like equivalent of, I don't know how much exercise I would have done. So I'm thinking, oh, thank you for that information, because that's just one aspect that would be creating tiredness, fatigue. I think we're trying to assimilate a lot with our human. It's having to do a lot of catch up. Our body, because it's the most densest vibration, is having to take in so much energy now, isn't it? It's like, it's extraordinary what's pouring into Mother Earth and coming out of Mother Earth and then pouring out of ourselves, and then also the human collective is releasing a lot of emotional density. There's a lot of fear out there. There's been a lot of grief, a lot of anger. It's all about the separation stuff that people are working with, and we're part of that, and we're helping to release that, because we're part of the collective and we're holding a certain vibration. So yeah, I think what I do know does help is activated water. So I work a lot with the water, talking with the water that I drink, and water is life force and light, and being out in nature. So however knackered I feel, I'm tuned into my body, and my body feels healthy. My body feels it's got a lot of energy, but I'm feeling tired in another. So I know that I'm healthy. So that's been a very good way of discerning what's going on. And then when I sit and especially lie down on earth, that's when I think we get support from Mother Earth, get to release anything we're needing to release, to support us, hold us, energize, assimilate. So we're being birthed with Mother Earth. She is on the awakening. She's holding us with this. So for me, and also it gets out of the human energy field of technology and everything. Be out in nature, away from that resonance. We can then I feel fine. Then I'm like, yay, I'm back to how I want to be. And I think that's part of the awakening process, is realizing certain ways of being it's that phrase, we can't stomach. It's like, or we know what the effect it has. So that's I don't know if you put a judgment on it, but that's the effect of awakening and becoming more sensitive. It's like, I know that I will not tolerate that. I can feel the resonance of that and the effect it has on me, and lowering, in order to be in that energy and field, I'd have to, I don't know, it's hard work basically.
Oh yeah. The other interesting thing is about nowadays about lucid dreaming and dreams. So, Zahara, I need your opinion on this. What about recurring themes in
Oh,
dreams?
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think?
I've had a lot of recurring themes in my dreams, and
Oh,
over the years. So that's us trying to release the trauma or the programming or both, or you can link them as they're interlinked. I did an interesting, you talk about recurring thing. I had an interesting thing that happened quite recently. I think it was, feels longer, but I think it might only have been 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. I got guidance, the Galactic Family of Light, my guys gave me information. They showed me the DNA and the artificial programming attached in the DNA, and I'm like, I've never seen this before. And it was like, wow, and it was like really clever, and it tried to kind of sort of copy the structure of the DNA to kind of be hidden. And then I started to I'm slightly deviating, but I will come back. Then I started to understand, well, that's how patterns of behavior, if you like, are passed down through generations through the DNA.
yes.
And so it will, and it is really physical. And it was like, it's quite logical in a way, but I hadn't really, because I've heard many light workers and way showers talking about waking up the dormant DNA and 12-strand DNA, and other people saying that doesn't exist. And it's been out there, and I've kind of touched on it, but I've not really wanted to go there. But through my own experience, because I always go with my own experience, it's like, oh, now I understand it, now I get it. And it's about golden activation. So I did one journey with my own Patreon group, and I didn't know this was going to happen. I've been working more and more with the Palladians.
Oh,
And as galactic star beings that are very angelic in their resonance. And they took us into this DNA clearing, releasing this programming energy that's attached in the DNA. And I'm like, wow. And then they said, right, you're going to do this now for more people. So I then did it again for more people. And then it was more extensive the second time I did it. That was like the introduction. I did it with a small group, and then it was more extensive. And I don't always know everything that's going to happen when I do go these kind of journey activations. So on both occasions, I had a dream the night following the clearing of the artificial inverted matrix 3D patriarch or whatever constructs and I dreamt that it was a psychopath murdering people on a bus with a huge machete. And in the dream, I was observing it. I wasn't feeling traumatized. It was horrific. So it's like, this is the core stuff that we're releasing. We're really releasing the densest vibration that human beings can go down to. So I was sitting on and so the bus is very symbolic of everything. So I'm sitting on the bus, and then the bus keeps stopping, and because there's bus stops and people keep coming on, and yet there's this psychopath. And I sit there and I'm like, why am I still sitting on this bus? And why are people getting on this bus and not seeing that he's on there and this is on there, this vibration, he's there doing, it's not a he, it's this kind of intention. And I suddenly had a light bulb moment in the dream, and I got off the bus.
Yeah.
And then I woke up, and I'm like, from the dream. And it was like so clear to me. And then I had it very similar the second time I did it. But this time, and that time I was going to what we would kind of, why are the police who you'd think would go in and stop a murderer? Why are and they were like la 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 la. And and I'm like, this is madness. And in a dream and in life, one can say everything is a reflection of ourselves. So the police could be that aspect that I've taken on of the programming. So it was I thought, this is really, it was a confirmation of my unconscious mind confirming the level of the releasing of the work that we'd been doing. because that is not a theme that I generally have. I don't have dreams of psychopaths killing and mass murdering. But also, you know, there's so many layers to it, because I feel we are on a collective rebirth. We're like a near-death experience on a collective level. So yes, that's
Oh yeah. You know, I just like to tell you, my recurring dreams is always I was heading home, and I'm always getting lost.
Oh gosh, yes. I
And
have that.
I remember the routes, I remember the roads, but
Yeah.
they somehow couldn't lead me to where my home is, you know. So what I do was sometimes I wake up from that, and I created in my mind while awake that I get to my destination. That's
I
my
do.
recurring dream.
Yes, me too. And I felt because I feel the patriarchy inverted 3D matrix system has lost its way. The people feel like are homeless. That there's this phrase, the hearth, as in the fire. The hearth is the home, and our home is where our heart is. And I feel a lot of people have numbed or even frozen their heart resonance, and we you know, attach to feeling at home to objects or people or but we're in Mother Earth, and she is our home for us humans. And yet we've been, as humans, not all of us, but you know, sort of going in and polluting the rivers and ripping up the forests, and then we wonder why we have these, many of us have these, that I suggest, these dreams, recurring dreams of feeling of being homeless. And then there's that separation from one another, of not being able to love one another or love ourselves, and that's not being at home. And I also, as a child, was homeless. Physically, I was homeless, because my home was so dysfunctional. Then I got abandoned, and then when they told me to come back because they'd moved and left me, I'm like, oh, no way am I coming back. Oh, no way. Oh, no, that's not happening. No. And so in a way, I say I was homeless, but I was homeless when I was in my home. And then I was finding myself by not being in that home. And even as a child, I remember very young, I don't know, 6 or 7, going to my parents and going, you're not my parents. And they were like, and I'd go on about it. I knew that they were my human parents, but I knew they weren't my parents. And I always had that experience of, I'm from somewhere else. And it got me in a little bit of trouble as a child, because I thought I wouldn't play along with the games in school, as in you sit down and you write a book, or you sit down and you listen to lessons. Like, I don't see why I have to do that. So I was a bit of a trouble in school. And the primary school I went to were actually very sweet, because they were back in the, you know, sort of 70s, and it was right in the country, so it's a very, you know, and they would just let me just be like, because I wasn't aggressive. It was like, I don't want to sit here and do that. I'm just like, why do I know? Yes, the homeless theme is definitely, yeah, I'd imagine a lot of people have that, who are probably, yeah, star seeds. I'd be,
Yeah, I think it's because also, as you mentioned about home is, you know, to us, many of us is actually from another planetary system. So we are here on Earth. We feel that we need to find our way back.
yeah,
And the other thing that interests me was once you mentioned about healing ancestral wounds. And to me, this is a very, very important concept, because in Taoism, we do a lot of such stuff. So I'm pretty surprised that in the West, not many do or believe about ancestral karmic debts and wounds. What's your opinion in your healing experience, Zahara?
In the healing modalities that have come up in Britain, and there are in America as well, they do talk about ancestral patterns and lineage and wounding that goes back through like the mother line or the father line. And so but outside this, what would the mainstream or patriarchy there's not that experience or understanding, knowing, or but in the psychotherapy world, which I've also, that's been a path that I've trodden on a lot. I've had a lot of I saw a body psychotherapist for about 7 years, and I trained as a child psychotherapist and worked as the universe actually gave me I applied for a job to be called a family support worker. But actually the person I was replacing was training to be a child psychotherapist, and I was. And so it was in a school, and the head teacher said, well, why don't you do the psychotherapy work? And I'd done 2 years training, and I'd put that away temporarily. And I said, oh, great, wonderful. So I ended up for 3 years working psychotherapeutically with children, one-to-one. So in my experience of exploring the like shadow work, healing myself, and then working with children, and then in training, that is an understanding about how patterns get passed down to generations, and therefore from ancestors. So they got that term nature and nurture. So for me, that is quite actually, in the areas that I've been in, quite commonly understood. Yeah. But then the areas I've been in might be as a minority compared to the majority of the system. But that I've just been exploring a lot through the different, what would be called counter or subcultures from the patriarchal view of things. I've got different perspectives. You know, I've actually moved from different spiritual groups over the years, just to try and find the pieces that I was holding. And each group only held, they were quite narrow or limited. I found they sang one note of the symphony, and that wasn't all of it for me. So but they all had their own perspectives, and all would talk about ancestral work. And I have actually one story to share.
Oh yes, please.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. I many years ago, I read a book by Maladome Some, or Som, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, and it's an autobiography of an African shaman. I think that's the title. It's been I don't know, 20 years or more that I read this book, and it was an amazing story of and I can't remember which country in Africa, but he was kidnapped from his village from a Christian group who wanted to save the souls of people from that country, the indigenous people from that country, and you know, so they wouldn't go to hell and they'd find Jesus or whatever they believe. But they kidnapped him as a child, and they indoctrinated him. They had like a camp where there was all these children, and they were forced to not speak their own language. They were taught, you know, the belief system of whatever these people believed in. And then he managed to escape, and then found his way back, and it was a long way, but he went by foot. He was then a teenager, because this was like years he was there. Then he found his way back to a village, and then got initiated, even though it was a bit later than they normally would do, because they knew his soul path, and they knew his name. It came through, I think it might have been before he was born. They knew that he was going to be a bridge maker between different peoples and cultures. And so because he had that experience, he understood the West in a way. So he's actually, anyway, so so he's written this book and it's in English, and I haven't kept up to what he I'm sure he's still traveling around and talking and leading workshops, but I saw him give a talk with his partner wife in London, in this venue at St James's Piccadilly. It has an alternative kind of a part of it that has all people that have very alternative, giving talks and workshops. So that church is very open-minded, and I don't remember a word of what he said. What I remember, what I quite was surprised at, was how cerebral his energy was. He was really in his head, his energy was. And I'm like, I thought he'd be more kind of boom in his body and like, but he wasn't. It was quite, you know, loads going on up there, which I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. Maybe that's why he's been successful, because he can reach Westerners or people that would have, you know, that resonate in that way. And so he's very, and I don't. That's not how I never have been. So I was kind of thinking, oh, I don't really resonate with him. I loved his book, but oh, I don't know. You know, I loved him. He was wonderful, but how he's talking, I just kind of, I'm like, oh, it's not quite, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. And then his wife, his partner, stood up, and he'd done a lot of talking. And at the end, she stood up and said, oh, I would like us to do some sounding and drumming. And she said, and I can remember her so clearly, what she looked like, how she sounded, how she felt. And she said, I don't know how you all function. I'm like, oh, that's when I woke up. I'm like, what? I don't know how you all keep going, how you live, because you are so separate from your ancestors. She said, I am completely surrounded and supported by beautiful beings and my ancestors. They're here with me. I see them, I feel them, I hear them. But you are not. You feel abandoned and lost. I don't know how you can function like that. And it was like, we talk about upgrades and messages and codes. That was, I can feel it now. It was like, I understood what she was talking about. I knew, because I thought, I felt it was like a huge soul retrieval healing, because it's like, that's what I felt since a child, that I was in with people that you are describing, but I couldn't. I felt things and saw things, and then in order to function, I kind of, especially in my 20s and 30s, I closed myself down to try and function in the system. So I sat there and I thought, I actually am more like you, but I've had to function in the system. And you're the first person who's touched my soul and heart, and I can feel what you're saying. It was so moving, I'll tell you. And then she said, and I don't know how we're going to do any sounding or drumming or singing, because you're all seated in these weird elongated pews. I don't work with people like, how do you sit like that? And I was just like, oh my God, she is like an angel. She is an angel. And that was, so we didn't do any sounding, but that was it was at least 20 years ago or more. Maybe it's 25 years ago, I don't know. And I was like, she touched my heart and soul. And so there's been times in my life, and there's another one, but I won't go into that now, maybe. But there's a time where I've been led to a talk that I didn't, and then that's been a profound experience that I've meant to not, you know, it's touched my heart in ways that are just amazing. So that's, yes, I wanted to share that.
Yeah, okay, Zahara. Before we close up, I would just like to add that my experience, I have a healing session with somebody about 3 weeks ago, and he's complained of many issues, and then I trace it to the origin of the issues to his maternal great-grandmother. The maternal great-grandmother have had a very serious emotional trauma, which was passed down to each generation of daughters. And now he's being the son, he's getting the effects. So what I did was, since I've traced it back to the maternal great-grandmother, I healed the trauma in that
Mm,
timeline.
mm,
And I could feel that each of the descendants were released.
yeah, yeah.
And a few days later, he gave me a fantastic feedback. And I was surprised because he suddenly said, "Hi, how, hello." He suddenly said um, his mother started to be very much happier, and in fact, cooking and serving him meals these days. And I could
Mhm.
say that, yeah, because of the release work that has been done, you know. So all the generations, even though they're passed on, they benefited from the healing and the release of the trauma.
Yes,
So,
yeah, I've done that work as well, and I had like one client where I was tuning into. I was told there's a wounding with her mother line, the ancestral line, and I asked to see, and I went back, and it was, I can't remember, it was like the great grandmother or great great grandmother, and it was that her husband kept her locked inside, and so I got to hear why, and the feeling why he did that, and what the effect that had on the grandmother of the how many greats, and how that then got passed down the family. And then her grandmother came in, and I felt her presence, her spirit. And I told this to the client, and I said, well, your grandmother's now saying this and relaying this because of, I think it would have been, so the great grandmother was forced to stay in, and da, 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 da. And my client went, oh my God, that's amazing. That's been like the huge issue in my family. And I said, well, you're carrying this resonance in your energetic field. It's having an effect on how you are as a woman and how you feel you can be. And so then I, like you, released that trauma. It was like playing over and over and over and again. It was through, it's like trapped energetically. Even though people have passed on, they're still, they it doesn't mean that you suddenly release all the stuff, because they'll probably, because they hadn't worked it all out. And I mean, that's another thing. I've seen people who have passed over, who don't want to believe that they've died, and they will create
yeah.
a reality where they believe that they're still alive. And I was staying at someone's, I was in the kitchen, and this man walked through the kitchen with a briefcase and a mobile phone. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he was so livid that I saw him, because it broke through that
Ah,
bubble that he'd created, that he was still alive running his business or whatever he thought he was doing. And I'm like, and I remember when I saw that, because this was again a few years ago, and I'm like, he's wearing a suit and he's got a briefcase and a mobile phone. I'd never seen a spirit like with all that get up. And I thought, oh my God, we create the reality wherever we are, whether we're alive in the physical or not. We create our reality. And there's nothing I could do. He just said, he was livid, he just carried on walking. And I'm like, wow.
well, Zahara, I thank you so much for this chat that we are having, and we are enjoying it. And I'm
Yes, me
sure
too, thank you.
we have lots and lots of things to discuss next time. I'm so happy because I'm able to get in touch with you and then set up today's meeting, and sort of impromptu.
Yes.
So once again, I thank you so much for your time
Oh, thank
talking
you.
to me here and to all the viewers. And I hope they have gained so much from your narratives and experiences. Like I've gained myself, I gained so much also, Zahara. Thank you so much. And in the traditional way, I will say, Om Tawful.
Blessings.
Bye.
Thank
Till we
you.
meet again.
Yes. Thank you too for your lovely sharing.
Thank
I
you.
love to